And welcome back to Dollars and Dragons. Today I have with me Andie MargoMods. If you'd like to introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, yeah, I'm Andy. I go by MargoMods Online. That's also the name of my TTRPG publishing company, which is just me and a bunch of artists that I hire, I guess, for commissions. Is there more I
Yeah.
should say?
Oh no, you can say however much you want, really. But I I believe that's the basically like the stripped down version of like the God, what am I trying to say? The small business that actually works within the space is really like you have to be a writer and a layout artist basically, and then find an artist or resources to use like Dean Spencer, which I've seen that you've used in some of your products. Really good resource, Dean Spencer, very good, especially if you're a GM and you just need like art and stuff like that. But Dean Spencer good for commercial works as well. Um, so let's talk about. I want to talk about the latest thing that you're working on first, and then we can kind of back up and talk about other stuff. The link for this campaign will be in the description. And I guess I'll post this the day that it launches, whenever that is. You can let me know, and I will just post that the day that it launches so that people can check it out right when it's available on Kickstarter. Yeah, let's bring us into. I'm going to say this incorrectly. Exoecology? Exoecology for Monster Hunters?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
it?
right. That's right.
Oh, wow. Listen to me. I'm a scientist. Okay, all right, great. What are you trying to accomplish with this, and what is it?
Yeah, so Exoecology for Monster Hunters is sort of my love letter to environmental storytelling. I, in a recent prior life, was a climate scientist. I have a PhD in chemical oceanography. I was a postdoc for a couple of years, using like mathematical ocean models to evaluate sensitive ocean regions to climate change. So I'm sort of embedded in thinking about climate and the environment and ecology. And I wanted to bring some of my knowledge about environmental science and some of my fascination with like weird biology and terrifying creatures to write a bunch of mysteries that have uh, monsters with like interesting combat mechanics that do strange things to the environment and give you like interesting little mechanics to adopt as you like harvest them and turn them into magic items. Because this is a book that will be compatible with a very big prior Kickstarter by Loot Tavern, which was Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting. They let you sort of fill out a little application kind of thing, send them a bunch of samples, and uh, we'll give you sort of a compatibility logo, verifying that the stuff that you're making can be used in coordination with their crafting and harvesting rules, which is very exciting and very cool.
There's a subset of player that is really into. Are you that player? Are you the crafter in the group?
No, no, I am the sort of storyteller mystery buff. I'm
Um,
obsessed with that feeling of looking back on the games that you just played and seeing all the clues you didn't know were clues and realizing in
oh,
the end like, oh shit, I should have seen that coming. And sometimes
yeah.
players do, and that feels really rewarding because it means that
Uh,
you've given them enough to figure it out. And not everybody figures it out, right? Because of course they don't. So
yeah.
I think my favorite moments in games are actually those. But I like the sort of like monster themed magic item bend to it, and it's sort of a natural choice for this book.
I saw that you, and we could talk about your mystery adventures here in a bit, but have seen that you've written some mysteries, both for Candela Obscura and then 5e. Um, and I'm kind of wondering where that desire comes from you. Are you a huge murder mystery buff? Did you really enjoy, like, I don't know, what are those penny novels? What are those that we read as kids? Okay, I'm just totally buffing on this, but you know what I'm talking about? There was penny
I
no like
do.
you're the same age, you're roughly the same age as me, right?
I
Um,
am. I am. I think I know what you're talking about. I didn't read them. My angle into a lot of like genres and sort of hyperfixations is probably different than most people. Um, I landed on murder mysteries uh, by sort of very carefully deciding what kinds of things I was going to do to sort of best support the process of me learning how to do RPG writing effectively. So I started with like official Wizards of the Coast modules and
Uh-huh.
expanded them on DM's Guild. And
Right.
both of them have sort of mystery components, but I
Hmm.
like added more to it to make it more robust. And then I sort of looked back on all of the games I've ever ran and was like, oh, I've never run anything that's not a mystery. I must be obsessed with this genre. And so the first original work that I did was a murder mystery because it has a very rigid sort of story structure, right? It's like somebody dies, you find a body, you collect clues, you find the murder, and then there's like a parlor
Right.
scene, more or less, where you like figure out who the murderer is, reveal it,
Hmm.
throw accusations, whatever. And that's just a really tight narrative structure for any kind of like mystery game. So it was appealing to me because it is just very like clear what parts you need to write and what you need to
Yeah.
do to make sure that people can do it. Um,
Uh-huh. It's formulaic in a way.
it's formulaic in a way, but it also supports like either a sprawling murder mystery where there's like a lot more going on and you like reveal a series of accomplices to find the true villain, which is sort of the
Hmm.
second murder mystery in the book that I
Hmm.
wrote called Murders at Lorlock Manor. Or you can do like a tight little one shot where, you know, you make combat sort of snappy and fast and make sure that like there are events to move people through the game quickly, even if they're not like mystery buffs themselves, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and I think what you touch on there with the formula of it, I think that especially in genre fiction, right? We are sort of conditioned with the media that we've consumed to sort of expect particular things, just like screenplays have a set length, right? And they have set events that occur normally in your timeline for particular types of movies. And the same can be said for like those, dime novel murder mysteries or those westerns or whatever that were like basically mass produced before we had people throwing stuff into AI for slop. But the because it's just so like a James Brown novel, right? Like a like one of
what a
those.
dark throwaway line! Like, oh, before in the before times, before everything was just slop for our AI overlords. Like,
Right.
yeah, I mean that's true, but also
Okay.
what a throwaway
Yeah.
line. Okay,
Yeah.
excuse me while I cry over here. I'll mute myself.
Um, but yeah, so there's something very good about murder mysteries because it and me having like so I wrote a murder mystery and I ran it quite a bit. I ran it I think like a dozen times for playtesting. And what I really found was that people sort of expected particular things. And because they expected particular things, that meant that you could build around that and kind of anticipate what it is that they're looking for. And that really helps you be mega prepared as a GM and then also allows you to create a fuller experience within their set of expectations and what they're looking for in the adventure. And some adventures, unfortunately, the player won't really understand like what you're trying to accomplish together. Um, and they will kind of go off course or they won't be as interested in it. But murder mysteries, everybody knows what a murder mystery is.
Everybody knows what a murder mystery is, and it leans on the three pillars of gameplay that everybody knows will be in D&D anyways, right? Because
Hmm.
it's like, well, I've had parties play through Murders at Lorlock Manor and not talk to basically anybody. No interrogations. They don't care at all about the NPCs.
Right.
But I intentionally designed it so that the rooms throughout the manor would be ways to learn clues, even if they're not like very into talking to NPCs. And then I've
Yeah.
had groups that solve it exclusively by interrogating people and comparing testimonies and like doing it that way.
Mhm.
And so it's like you just support the clue gathering with like social and exploration, and then eventually
Yeah.
when they figure it out or don't, combat happens, right? Like
Right. And that's kind of like going back to one of the reasons why people like to rewatch shows as like a comfort show and then also stick in a particular genre if they're looking for something. And it's one of the reasons like something like Suits, for instance, like that legal drama, like sort of it follows literally the same plot structure for almost every episode, almost every season. And it's just like kind of just something you can enjoy while, you know, having it either in the background, but there's something about it that we like, and when those expectations are met, we're satisfied. When those expectations are subverted in a way that doesn't keep the same promise of the original pitch of the story, like you will find out X, Y, or Z, then it's unsatisfying. I think part of that is like if oh God, I'm going all over the place with like these examples, but that'd be one of the big reasons why, like, besides the racism, as to why people didn't like the second new Star Wars film, The Last Jedi. Is it The Last Jedi? No, The Return. I forget what it's called. Um, but there was expectations subverted, and there was not enough setup for a lot of people, I suppose, in order to kind of enjoy it for what it was. I personally like it. I will take that to my grave. Like I will hold on to that. Now I need to look up which Star Wars movies. This is embarrassing for me. This is it's The Last Jedi. Um, this is how you know that I'm not like a mega Star Wars fan. I mostly just like Rogue One and Andor.
I
Those
mean,
are my
yeah,
faves.
Andor is incredible TV.
Yeah, yeah, super anti-fascist. Season 2 comes out soon. Oh my God, I'm so excited for that.
Me
But
too.
yeah, I would I feel like a campaign like written in the style of like Andor, where you are slowly radicalized into fighting this imperialist war machine, that would be cool. I feel like that's a lot of D&D campaigns though, right?
I do think that that is a lot of D&D campaigns, yes. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that guy who hired you first job was actually the bad guy. Whoa.
I'm looking through your work here, and there's a couple of things that really jump out at me. First of all, the layout is stellar. I
Thank
don't
you.
know how long you learned or you worked on your layout, so I'm going to ask you right now, how long did it take you to get this good at it? Like, what do you use for this?
I mean, I started with like Homebrewery for the
Uh-huh.
like DM's Guild modules, and then I switched to Affinity once I was like, okay, I'm gonna do like my own book and like really go into this. Um, I I mean, I started publishing these things in what, like 3 years ago. So,
Hmm.
uh, you know, by now I've been at it for 3 years, and I work on things pretty obsessively. And I think that a lot of my skills from academia have translated pretty well um, to TTRPG publishing, just in terms of like information hierarchy and trying to be like concise and describe things in an order that makes sense to people. Um, and that is at its core what layout is about. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
No, and really just me as a pro GM and seeing the layout and how it's organized. And for this sample that I'm looking at, I haven't actually read the preview, but I'm like looking at the layout and I'm like, this would be incredibly easy to digest. Um, it's really I'm very envious of this. It's just great.
Yeah. So you're referring to the preview from Exoecology, I assume, is what you're looking at.
Yeah, yeah, I'm looking at that
Yeah,
one.
that's sort of inspired by some like OSR style adventures that I've read, like
Hmm.
Halls of the Blood King with the like bolded bullet points matching sort of the like short descriptor text, which
Right,
I love because it's like, oh, okay, you always know where to look instead of digging through paragraphs of like dubious organization intermingled with like flavor text, right?
right,
These are technical documents that should be fun to read, but are still ultimately technical documents. So
right.
yeah, I've put a lot of thought into, what kind of layout I think actually helps people
Yeah,
running games.
now that you've said that, this does look like a Kelsey 5e adventure. But more
Uh,
Kelsey like does very trim one shots. So this is a lot more verbose, but it's like in that same style now that you mention it. Yeah, oh sorry, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
but so I personally would really struggle to run OSR adventures
Hmm.
because they leave so much up to you. And if I'm running a module, I want it to give me stuff that I can use or ignore. But if there's like just a totally open field, I sort of freeze, right?
Mm.
Or I'm more likely to freeze, and I don't find that to be a comfortable place to be as a GM. So I sort of strike like a balance where it's like, yeah, here's all this stuff that you can use. I'm going to try to be as concise as I can be while still being evocative, and I'm going to include all the stuff that like would help me run the game and help people like me who want stuff that they can use or ignore, which is not necessarily the OSR style. But they've done like a bunch of really sort of revolutionary work in terms of how to make it really easy to parse really quickly such that you don't even have to read it beforehand. I don't think
Hmm.
that's the case with my adventures. You probably do need to read them beforehand, but you don't have to read them that closely. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, it definitely looks like a technical manual, so I can really see that. The adventure outline as well. Brilliant. Love that for adventures. I love when they include stuff like that. Um, how how long had you been a GM before you started writing content?
Not that long. I hyperfixate real hard on stuff. So I jammed a bit before I started writing the like expansions to the Sunless Citadel and Forge of Fury, but ultimately when I sat down to actually run those games, I wrote what I needed and it was like, oh, this is like a publishable unit. I just need to
Mm-hmm.
clean it up and do it. Yeah, I just went hard. So
You
less
start you
long than you
started
might guess.
so you started in like 2020 or 2021?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. Damn. All right. Well, yeah, don't let your dreams stay dreams, I guess, you know. That's cool. That's cool. Did you do storytelling collective or like did you just go hard on like how was your what was your learning process like for this? Where'd you go?
So I didn't join the Storytelling Collective until after I had already published a couple of things and was embarking on my first original work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I wrote the expansions for Sunlit Citadel and Forge of Fury before joining any sort of like small learning communities, essentially. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I just read a bunch of articles online about what people recommended, and then like leaned on how do you learn stuff, which is start with something small and doable. And with Sunless Citadel and Forge of Fury, they have mega dungeons and they have a functioning adventure. And so there's really just the question of like, well, how do I bring sort of like more interesting NPCs and storytelling bits to it in a way that would make me more interested in those adventures, almost as like practice for sort of the original work that followed. So I just started with something that was relatively small from my perspective before launching into like bigger stuff. I just read a lot. I read a lot of stuff. I read like blogs from like, the Alexandrian and watched a bunch of YouTube videos and
Right.
I like, I really got into D&D with like the Adventure Zone and Dimension 20 primarily.
Uh-huh.
And I like listened and watched everything that was available before even really sort of sitting down to start doing any of this for myself. So I was like immersed in D&D content before sitting down to write. Um, Certainly like old video games growing up, like Icewind Dale and the Baldur's Gate games, and a whole bunch of stuff that at the time I didn't know was D&D was D&D. So I don't know. I've been sort of like boiling in this stuff for a really long time.
I started playing in 2020. I had played MUDs before that though. I was a big MUD player. I don't know. You are in my age group, so I'm gonna reference this a lot. You know what a MUD is, right?
I don't.
You're a doctor? You don't know what MUDs are? Okay. I just meet a lot of disproportionate MUD users who are like in the academia field. But For MUDs, those are multi-user dungeons. They are text-based role-playing MMOs essentially. Before there were MMOs, EverQuest is actually based on MUDs. They were made at the time, and they can function almost exactly like a tabletop game, except it's just all text, and you use the keyboard to navigate and then talk and role-play with other people. But that's how I started. I played a MUD or a few MUDs for 15 years. Yeah, since I was a teenager before
Wow,
I started
cool.
getting into um, running games and stuff. I mean, I kind of got into it as a fluke because I was like getting out of the military at the time. It was a big life change, and I was like, I've got a lot more free time than I used to. It would be cool to play D&D on stream, and that's kind of what started it. So I did that, and then I started to run games, and then I turned my setting that I created into the first thing that I did. I was started working on Vineyard RPG essentially, or that's what became Vineyard RPG was kind of that setting. Um, but I do find it's really interesting as people like how they got started because it's such an eclectic group of people that do tabletop game design. So you have people, you very rarely will just meet someone. I guess they exist now, but very rarely did you meet people that had started as just like 18 years old and already creating adventures, right? It's normally like they do it in their spare time for fun for 10 years and then eventually they get a job somewhere. Or
Yeah, yeah.
or they go independent. It's a field without many jobs though, so it's forever the part-time full-time life as it were.
I mean, that's why I do crowdfunders, right? It seems to be like one of the only ways to potentially make money, and it's certainly not a guarantee.
Yeah. I see that you have a newsletter. I'm about to talk business. The rest of this podcast is business, y'all. So if um so your business, right? Like you send out newsletters. How often you send out newsletters? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I want to talk newsletters.
So I am a sort of baby newsletterer.
Okay.
Um, I am using it now to disseminate free previews for
Uh-huh.
my Kickstarter. So like once a week in the month leading up to the Kickstarter launch, I'm going to be sending out free stuff. So I already sent out the first free subclass, which is the Path of the
Mhm.
Gelatinous Brute for barbarians.
Yeah.
You get like a big oozy exoskeleton essentially, which I think is really fun. The next one will probably be the like portal punching monk, the warrior of the displaced fist. That'll be fun. And sort of by the end of this, of April, I will release an entire free adventure, which is the preview that you're looking. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that will be given for free. It's like one of 6 adventures in the book. At least 6. Probably there will be more.
Yeah. I really love the I this is very silly. This amuses me, but like the orc monk woman kicking into the portal and then on the opposite page a guy getting kicked in the face. Very silly. I
Yeah,
love that.
I love layout comedy. Like I
It's peak.
ever since I like made that choice, I was like, oh no, this is going to be my future in sort of every possible way that I can think of. Um, I'm like now going to be looking for opportunities where it's like, what art can I commission that you can sort of splice in half and do silly things in layout with? Like,
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited.
No, that looks that's great. I'm sure honestly that is gonna make its rounds and people are gonna share that, to be quite honest with you. That's very funny.
I hope they do. I think it's hilarious.
No, it's really good. It's kind of and those are like the small touches that I really appreciate about indie work is like you can see the creator's personality come out in moments like that. Um, it's very it's great. And it's one of the things that you really don't get much from uh big ticket like D&D stuff because they sanitize so much of it to be vanillaized for which is their goal really and that's fine but that's how they kind of do business is like they want everything to be as vanilla as possible so but with indie work you can put a lot of personality into it.
I have been told, and I believe that it's sort of one of the only ways to survive, you know, sequential enshittification of platform after platform, right? So I know it's important, and I'm going to try to continue to build it, but uh, that is, I think, one of the weakest parts of my sort of whole business. In part because I'm already doing too much, right? It's like I'm running marketing campaigns, I'm putting together all the like graphic design stuff. I am doing layout, I'm writing the book, I'm also doing like other projects. It's just there's a lot of stuff to do. And something has to fall off, right? And for
Mhm.
me, that's been the newsletter for a long time, which I think is too bad because it is a good way to stay in contact with people.
I agree. I'm super guilty of this. I actually write newsletters pretty infrequently now, um, especially now that I have a regular job. But there's just less time for stuff. But I've always said like if there's one thing that I make sure to keep doing, it's the podcast. So because it's the thing that I enjoy the most and it's easy to do, and I just pay someone to edit it and then they put it up and then it's good. And
Incredible.
yeah, but I did want to talk to you about marketing because this is uh my love-hate topic. I have crowdfunded a Kickstarter and a backer campaign myself, and I know that it's terrible. And I want to talk to you about your process, and maybe you can teach me something that will help me. What do you do when you initially start with your marketing? How do you approach it? And what have you kind of seen with each of your campaigns?
So with Lorelock, I honestly just made a bunch of friends. I started going to conventions. So I went to my sort of big breakthrough moment for Lorelock was I went to Gen Con and I schmoozed at parties and like made friends with people and accidentally made friends with like uh I think she'll be fine with me saying this, but I made friends with like Diana the Rose, who I didn't know at the time had like hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. I was just like
Okay.
being nice to people and chatting about like zoology and stuff. And she made a video for me, which brought in probably a third of my Kickstarter funding on its
Oh.
own. Because if you look at like the Kick Track or whatever those like tracking websites for the funds
Hmm.
raised over time in a Kickstarter, you can see in the middle of the campaign a massive spike, which is when her video dropped.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, which is a really abnormal crowdfunding journey because typically you'll raise a third in the first 2 days, a third
Hmm.
in the intervening 26 days, and then a third in the last 2 days. That's sort of the typical math. That is not what happened for my first Kickstarter. Um, not by a long shot. And that's largely because of Diana, but not exclusively because of her. Because I also had made friends in sort of like podcasting spaces and people who are doing actual plays and just like talk to people. And it wasn't because I wanted them to market stuff, it's because I work at home and want friends, you know? And it turns
Right.
out that like
Yeah.
just being nice to people and chatting with them like does have benefits also beyond just like them being your friends, which was wild to me. It was not what I expected. Um, that's not advertising advice because I only put in $200 into advertising for Lorlock,
Mm.
um, which is in the grand scheme of an advertising campaign, nothing. Because I've been told um, that you should budget at least something like 30% of your goal into advertising. Um,
Hmm.
and now I'm using meta ads, which I'm frustrated that I'm using them because Facebook is deeply evil and all these big tech companies are evil. But
Hmm.
they also make their money off of advertising, and so it is very effective. And you can measure your sort of like a cost per result with your like pixel tracking, set it up on Kickstarter, set it up on your website, and see how much money it costs you to get like a pre-launch follower, for instance, on Kickstarter. And you can do the math where it's like, well, typically maybe you'll get like 20% conversion of your pre-launch followers on day one ish, And so you know, even before you're collecting pledges, what the average value of that pre-launch follower is, and you know how much it cost you. And so you can determine, based on all the ads that you've made, which ones are sort of performing well. And then once you do that, and you get enough people, I don't know, a couple hundred or whatever, following your pre-launch Kickstarter, you can start making lookalike audiences based on what that like meta pixel, which is just a database collection widget app. I don't even know what you call it. But you can make a lookalike audience saying like, I want to send this ad to people who are similar to people who have signed up to be pre-launch followers. And that is when you start getting really good returns relative to your sort of initial go at it. That was sort of a lot of mumbo jumbo, but basically you put money into it and turn off the ads that aren't working and make a bunch of different iterations based on ads that you've seen that you clicked on or slowed down on or whatever, and learn something from their layout and graphic design and try your best and see what works.
You just explained in like those couple of minutes what it took me. That took me like 6 months to learn all that. Like like how to use meta ads and like how everything the various tiers of like what you're looking for and the RO how to figure out what ROI is for these ads and everything. I think it's
I
an
mean,
unfortunate
it took me longer than 6 months because I sort of started doing like basic exploration with Lorlock, which is where the $200 went, where it was like, I'm gonna sort of do a first pass at this, not invest very much, and just try to like get enough of a handle that when I really invest in it, I'll have like enough of a start to not be starting from scratch. And then I spent a lot of time with Exoecology, digging more into it and setting things. So this did not happen instantly. I put in a colossal amount of work and like it took me a while.
No, I can tell that you definitely put in the work because the fluidity with which you explain that says to me that you know it very intimately, to be honest. So, no, that's great. Do you also do marketing for other people?
I don't know.
Uh, Maybe you should offer.
Oh my God. That's a terrifying thought.
Become a PhD to marketer. Oh no.
Yeah, that oof. Wow. So okay. If I weren't putting money in the pockets of Meta, which I
Mhm.
am and I hate, um, there is the thing that I tell myself about marketing in general and like going on podcasts and making connections with people is like that is the way that people will find things that they like, right? And you're making creative products and you want people who want your stuff to be able to find it. And so advertising in and of itself is not like evil or wrong or something to be embarrassed about, but I resent that I feel like I have to use meta ads because of the tools available, because all the social media, whatever posts basically do nothing, right? Because of the design of all these tech companies. So I feel a little trapped, and so I'm resentful of marketing. But yes, I've put in a lot of work into it. Maybe I should offer my services. This is not me saying I will, but like, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, so here's the thing, Andy. Like, you know marketing, which nobody does, um, at least in the sphere, really, except for like a few people who usually primarily stay in marketing. But then you're also a game designer and you publish things. So these two things together make you very valuable to tabletop companies or people who want to publish because it's specialized knowledge. You're talking about very highly skilled specialized knowledge, Andy.
Yeah, well, as someone with a PhD, I have a lot of specialized knowledge, and I'm not used to it being useful.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's oh sad one tier.
I know. It's like kind of a joke, but also I don't even think about whether or not my skills are marketable. I'm just like, what the hell do I need to put these books on the market?
Right.
Which, like, of course, is yeah something that other people need to. I
Right.
just don't think about it.
Yeah. And I'm also amazed at the diversity in your portfolio is pretty incredible to me because you have Candela Obscura, you have this adventure that just went up 2 months ago for Draw Steel, which is the new MCDM project. You have this 5e supplement product, the Exoecology one, and that is going up, and that is directly linked to material from someone else's Kickstarter, which is a totally different system that you would have to learn and master. So I'm just like wondering, like, are you trying to like get some kind of award for most like what do you call that? Like it'd be like the Jill of all trade. Like you trying to get like the
No, no, it's just what I need to do in order to feel like I'm actually like learning something and making good shit. So a lot of the people in the sort of, I mean, you would know this, but a lot of the people who post on social media and who make YouTube videos and whatever are like, you should try other games to learn stuff from them to inform whatever game you're playing, whether it's D&D or something else. And I think
Mhm.
that that's true. I think that you can learn a lot just by virtue of like playing Blades in the Dark or playing Candela Obscura or playing Daggerheart or like whatever the hell you're playing. And you'll find things that you like, things that you can transport, and things that you really hate, which are problems to solve, right? So I don't view them as different things. I just view them as all the same pursuit of like learning how to actually do this. I don't know. They don't feel different to me. They're just all game design. They're all writing adventures, which is the part that I love, right? Because like, so story structures like murder mysteries, this is true of like anything that has a story structure of any kind, like the hero's journey or whatever. That is independent of system, right? It's even independent of like whether you're writing fiction or like living your life and describing what happened to like somebody that you know, right? We are storytelling animals. And I just see all of these as different ways to tell the same kinds of stories in like different avenues. So I don't know. I'm look, I mailed my copies of Lorlock for the Annies, and I'm not going to get nominated. But if somebody wants to give me an award for Jill of all trades, I'll take it.
I wouldn't say that because like I don't know. My nomination for an Emmy was a very big surprise to me, and you never know. I don't think you should count yourself out. The quality of work that I've seen from you is very high, so I wouldn't be surprised if you got nominated. Because getting nominated really is like the big thing. If you're talking about winning with your platform, maybe not because it's a popularity contest essentially, and it's like name recognition kind of thing. Um, but getting nominated, that's just a panel of judges, and they're going to judge things how they want to judge things, and they'll actually take a look at it. And in this sort of slop infested internet that we have, in which like the things that get the most eyeballs aren't necessarily the best things, or the highest quality products, I should say. It's it can be, I think, discouraging, but I think it's important that you still submit yourself for these awards.
Well, I did. We'll see.
Okay. All right, good. I had the most sales ever the month that they announced that my adventure got nominated. So if there's for any other reason, like if only for one reason is to do that for that reason. But it's a it's free, as they would say, it's free real estate, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I would say the system I'm writing for that feels the most different from the others, and this might be a surprise to you, is actually Draw Steel.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's not because so Draw Steel is a very tactical game in a way that D&D is not for a lot of people, right? Like it supports highly tactical adventures and combat and stuff. But you sort of have to bring that yourself and design the encounters very carefully in order to actually do that. Whereas with Draw Steel, it's very sort of tactics forward in the system, and it mandates that you bring that sort of level of like encounter design uh, thinking to it. Otherwise, I think that you're not really writing for that system. Whereas with like Candela Obscura, for instance, it's very fiction forward, and so you don't really need this is I love Candela Obscura. I think it's a great system. I think it's super fun. But you don't really need to sweat the details in a lot of ways. You just need to capture the vibe,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that the story that you're telling suits that vibe and that setting very well. Um, and so it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to write for than some systems that have like more invested into their specific mechanics. So I think the Draw Steel adventure that I'm writing with my friend Shay Dunser is awesome. I think it's really cool. We're making this silly little kobold adventure with really high stakes, uh, and it's very much sort of inspired also by my climate science background because there's like a fire elemental on a mountain trapped by this prison powered by the frozen heart of a dead ice dragon that like ruled over this rime legion of kobolds. And the prison is melting, the fire elemental is getting out, so all the snow is melting, and everything is going to be absolutely terrible for everybody involved if you can't stop this fire elemental from truly escaping. And of course, there's like political intrigue with like the Pontifex who wants to release this thing so he can become the first saint of dragons. Like it's like really sort of high stakes heroic fantasy nonsense that I say very lovingly because I love fantasy nonsense. I'm really excited about it because it's an excuse to sort of go like epic fantasy, big people doing big stuff, save the world in one small way. Um, but the sort of system design for it and the like wrapping my head around the encounters has been a challenge, and I think it's a welcome challenge because it is stretching me in ways that D&D has not. Um, and that's why I do it, right? Like I don't know. Yeah.
I am unironically excited about this Kobold adventure.
I am so excited about it. I'm so excited about all of these things. Like I'm so excited about the plant hive mind in exoecology making thralls connected by like roots that trail through the forest into the tomb where the monster is. Like I don't know, all this stuff is so exciting to me. It's just wild. It's an excuse to make like just totally like off the wall choices, and that's I think what I'm in it for.
That's really great. I'm there's a part of me that's like super mega jealous that you're just like full time going for it. But I know what that's like, and that must be very like there's like a lot of weight
A
probably
lot
right
of
here.
weight,
A lot
yes.
of weight.
And I'm stressed all the time. And a lot of this, since, so with Lorelock, for instance, all the money that
Hmm.
I've made from that book, which is, effectively, it's barely broken even, um, was from the crowdfunding campaign. So there's all of this weight, not just on like me to produce good work, but on me to run a successful crowdfunding campaign. Because if it doesn't go well, then you're just sort of on the hook for, either completing or distributing a book, which lost you money. And
Hmm.
that feels even worse, right? Like, you know,
Hmm.
yeah, it is what it is. A lot of pressure.
The answer might change, like in a few weeks, but or a few days, a few hours. But I see that you use like the print for the murders at Lorlock Manor. I see that you use like the print on demand option. Looks like, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was your experience like with that? And if you don't want to, if it's a bad experience, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want in this podcast. But I'm just kind of curious what your experience was like with the print on demand, and what are the advantages of it, and some of the limitations in your mind as a crowdfunder.
I mean, the books look great. I think that, so I'll start with advantages first, uh, which is that you don't, I'm going to start at the beginning. The choice that you're making is between print on demand and offset printing. And offset printing, you have to lock in for a certain number of copies, usually like 500, um, and then increment it in units of 500. So it's like you can order 500, 1,000, 1,500, or whatever the printer offers you. and the price per unit is going to be much lower than what you would get with print on demand. But print on demand is not as risky because you will never overprint, right? And so your margins are shittier, and the print quality is usually not as good as what you can get for the price from offset printers. And you have less control over the output. Like, if they're doing glossy pages, great. If they're not, you can't get it, right? Like there are choices that they've made as the print on demand supplier that you have no control over whatsoever. That is not the case for offset printers. Uh, but in order to make an offset print run worth it, you have to be able to sell that many copies. And so you need a big enough audience and you need a successful enough crowdfunder to make it worth it. Otherwise, you're sitting on a garage full of books that you'll never sell. And so you can really bring down the unit price and get a better margin, but you might lose more money than if you went the print on demand route. And so I went print on demand because it was not risky at all. And I had done some reading about the process for drive-through, where they have great documentation. They tell you exactly what you need to do. They tell you, even like I was using Affinity Publisher. I still use Affinity Publisher, which is a free one-time purchase. You should use it over InDesign, in my opinion, because it is much cheaper and it does all the things you need for TTRPG publishing. They tell you exactly how to do it on drive-through RPG, and so it's very easy. In my opinion, it was very easy for me. I shouldn't say that it's easy, period, but it was very easy for me to follow their instructions and get it set up with almost no problems. I had some difficulties with the layout of the cover based on their templates, which I think was my own mistake because I didn't ask anybody. I just read their stuff and did it. And I could have asked somebody who could have helped me and probably would have saved me, a month and a half of waiting on copies to arrive in the mail. And so that's me being stupid and stubborn. I could have just asked somebody. They have very helpful staff, and you can ask them questions and they'll answer very quickly. So those are largely the pros for drive-through RPG. The major con to me is the lack of control over the outcome, the time you have to wait in order for the print-on-demand copies to arrive at your doorstep, which is slow for hardcover books. And so if you have to make edits, it's a very long turnaround to sort of keep making new versions. And you don't have sort of a dedicated printer representative whose job it is to make sure that the clients are happy to do these offset print runs. And so the sort of dedicated support of these printers is going to be helpful, right? And the other pro of doing drive-through print on demand is that it's set up as a marketplace for people to continue buying print on demand. So it's just very easy. It's very easy comparatively. So those are the reasons I went with drive-through RPG for my first one. But this second book is bigger, more ambitious, and has 4 times as many pre-launch followers a month out from launching as I did, with more stuff in it. There's cards and dice and the book, which is twice the length of Lorelock. It's just a much more ambitious project. And so I care more about my margins, and I think I can do better in terms of moving product. And so an offset print run is more worth it to me. I hope, right? That's where all the stress is. It's am I making the right choice? I won't know until I've done it. I won't know. I think it's the right choice. I think that based on, I have about the number of pre-launch followers as my Excel spreadsheet of back of the envelope math thinks I need to break even. But who knows, right? The numbers that I put in estimating what I think the split between physical products and cards and dice and whatever, and VTT modules could just be wrong. 90% of people could buy the PDFs or whatever because they don't want to deal with shipping. I don't know what's going to happen, right? And then, it's totally different. My average pledge is not what I thought it was. So the number of pre-launch followers and whatever, everything could change.
Yeah, I'm just laughing because I know that I'm there in Google Sheets doing the same calculation.
Yeah.
I'm just this is how many people I need and this is what it costs. And yeah, we went through and we broke down the second crowdfunder I ran. we really went into more depth because I worked with Metal Weave Games on it, and Andreas will just find the printer he works with all these many. I don't have to worry about that. That's why I decided to work with him on that. I was just running
Incredible.
the creator studio, right? And I just work about the production of the book, not the manufacture of the book. So,
Now it's
which took
my turn to be jealous.
oh,
Because
it was like
I don't want to have to deal with this stuff, and I do.
right.
So
Right.
yeah.
No, and that's the thing. Like after I ran, once I finish GMROM here in the next month or so, like we're just wrapping, and then it'll be out of my hands, and then I'll never have to. And I love what we produce, but I'm just so ready for it to be done, and I just don't want to deal with it. And I just want to see. I want people to have it, and then enjoy it, and then move on with my life and get back to Vineyard and finishing that up because it's a much bigger project. And I have to do all the stuff that we were just talking about, like um,
Mm-hmm.
everything top down that just basically hasn't been done. So yeah, it's a huge undertaking, and it's like 3 full-time jobs crammed into one underpaying job. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, and definitely there's I think a huge misconception about how much money you end up actually keeping as well. Um, not even counting taxes and stuff, like, the government's going to want 15% no matter what, like for this type of business. And then you have to keep in mind, like, the crowdfunding campaign wants some stuff. Then if you spent money on ads and you're already down to 60% of what you've earned,
Yep.
before you even talk about hiring people to do the stuff that you need to do, which is why
Or
Andie does
margins.
layout.
Like, yeah, yeah, that is why I do layout. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't afford a layout artist. Are you kidding me? I
Yeah.
gotta do that.
Do you
Yeah.
hire someone for editing?
No.
You just edit yourself? You're just like, I've turned in so many research papers.
I mean, yeah.
No, that's fine.
Um,
That's a
yeah.
flex. That's good. No, I mean,
I
like,
think for
we're very
exoecology,
confident.
well, I don't know. I mean, I run my own playtest, so I know it's fine. It's like, yeah, I am. I think for exoecology, assuming it's not a total bust, I will hire an editor. That would be
Hmm.
great. Um, but I mean, Lurlock is that was easy. I mean, it's a complicated
Yeah.
book, but it was easy to edit because there's not like it's not much about like mechanical stuff that could really go wrong.
Hmm.
So with that one, I felt pretty confident. It's like if there are mistakes, they're not major, and it's fine. And even with an editor, there will be mistakes, so it's fine.
Yeah. 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 Dang. I'm just so you have right now this crowdfunder campaign for the Great Maw of Grizz Mithrak Spire.
Hey,
Is
look
that?
at you! Yeah, that's how you say it. Yeah.
Oh wow, this Draw Steel adventure. So you have that going. You have Exoecology going here pretty soon. Do you have another crowdfunding campaign on a different website that I've missed?
No, no, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. But I'm like sitting on this idea that I may write next, which is like Ardranor, the City of Leaves, which is like a seed from the stars with a tree with its roots in the seafloor and leaves above the surface. And it's like, I don't know, I want to make a city adventure next. So that's like still sort of like in the back of my mind. Um, I'm probably not going to do much for it for a long time because I have books to write. Uh, but yeah, I'm always sort of thinking about what the next thing is. But no, there are no hidden crowdfunders that you haven't yet located. No.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, yeah, they're doing 2 crowdfunders at once. Whoa, that's
Well, one of them is a one shot, right? It's a draw steel one shot, and I'm working on it with somebody else, so it's small, it's easy. I'm kidding. It is a one shot. It is smaller, but I also am a tryhard, and so it's going to be more intense than it used to be.
yeah. I see that it's only PDFs, right? Or do you have a
Yeah, it's only
plan to?
PDFs. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's way easier. Yeah.
So ideally, what I really want to do, part of the reason that we decided to write for Draw Steel
Mm-hmm.
is because MCDM is explicitly looking for adventure writers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I want to make it good enough that they are impressed by it and think it's cool and want to like turn it into sort of a bigger project. That would be awesome. I would love to do that. Um, and we'll see. I don't know. I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm gonna work on it real hard and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's honestly the biggest thing for a lot of publishers is like, what have you produced of their current lines? Um, as like an assurance that you're going to do good work, essentially. But it's such a it's such a hard ask.
Yeah, it's a
I'm
fun system to play. So
mhm.
I I have had a better time as a player in Draw Steel than I ever did as like a D&D player. Just
Really?
like more
Okay.
stuff to do. It was just fun. Like we shoved a goblin through a wall. Like there were mechanics for like how many squares you force push a goblin
Yeah.
or a person, whatever, to like get through a square of stone wall. And like we did it by all piling on. And it was just like, wow, I see dungeons differently now. We can put holes in walls. I can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. No, it looks like and I think like that team tried to capture like what makes good action adventure and how do
Yeah.
we systemize that as opposed to like there's this legacy with D&D that we don't really think about in like the source material in which it is like high fantasy and there's like sort of genre expect going back to expectations.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
genre expectations for that and Draw Steel can really position itself to be something different. And I think that's pretty exciting. I'm actually I haven't checked up on Draw Steel in a while. Is it out?
It's not out yet. No. It's
Like that's
content complete and it's in layout and editing.
okay.
It comes out actually I don't know when. But they're like playtests for like the Dealing Tomb going on the MC server, so
Mm,
I don't know, it's cooking.
gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I remember
I
this.
think
Gosh, how long ago was this? This was 2024.
yeah.
2023, end of 2023 when they launched. I remember they launched in December and everybody was like, that's a bad time to launch, and then they make $4.5 million.
Uh-huh. Draw
Yeah.
Steel, they solved or sort of like carved out of D20 fantasy some of the problems that I absolutely hate in D&D. So I hate having no choice but to attack. Like that's just
Right.
so boring. And in Draw Steel, that will literally never happen. It can't happen. You always have abilities that are available, and you accrue heroic resources as turn by turn goes, and so you get more and more access to more abilities as combat goes on, instead of the inverse of spending spell slots and having fewer options. So like there's that's one of the many choices that they've made that cut out a lot of the things that really bug me. Because like D&D where it's like you roll really bad for 10 rolls in a row and you never hit the monster, like that also literally can't happen in Draw Steel because you only roll to how well you've hit them, not whether or not you have. So it's like they've just taken out some of the major pain points for me personally in D&D, and I find it to be just less annoying. So yeah, no, I think it's a cool system, and which is why I'm writing for it. I think it's very exciting.
Absolutely. Find what you love and create more of that, I guess. Andy, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think next time we talk, if you should deign to return to the podcast, let's not do this at 9 p.m., but our schedules only allowed us to meet at 9 p.m. this week. So, yeah, this was great.
Yeah, I had a great time. I'm happy to chat all the time.
Let me stop my bots.